Swadika, welcome to this edition of Headliners. Post May 30th, Thailand's political scene seems to be a bit clearer, with elections slated to take place later on this year, maybe as early as November 25th. And of course, with the dissolution of the Thai Party, a political ban on 111 of its members, tenders that will be taking place and taking part in this next general election. I'm seated today with one of the contenders, a front runner, you may say, and of course the leader of the Democrat Party. I welcome Kun Apisit Wechachiwa. Swadika.
Swadika.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Can I say that correctly? Are you a front runner?
I think it's far too early to say.
Okay.
We don't yet know how many more parties will be registered. There are so many former MPs who might still switch parties, move to one particular party or another, whether it's old or whether it's new. We don't yet know the details of the elections because we have to get through the referendum for the constitution first. So really, I think it's far too early to say. All I can say is that I myself and the Democrat Party is determined to help the country resolve all the crises we're facing.
Now, elections, the Prime Minister floated the idea that we could be facing early elections, maybe late November, they say, with a referendum for the Constitution occurring sometime in mid-August. After the referendum takes place, of course, it's still up in the air whether or not the Constitution will pass that referendum. Politically, not only in terms of the Democrats, but in general, do you think that's enough time to actually set up a campaign, actually get to know the people, actually get out a platform?
I think there is enough time, but I've been urging the NLA to speed up the procedures about the setting up of new parties. I think it's best for the country that the electorate have clear choices, and the longer we allow political parties to work before the elections, the better. But we need to have the elections within the time frame of the provisional constitution. Otherwise, we cannot hope to get the confidence and respect of the rest of the world. So it's blocked by election sometimes either in November or December, and therefore if we could get the new parties to be registered, say, within next month, even before the referendum, then I think that would be enough time and it would be good for the country.
Do you have an estimate in mind as to how many contenders we're talking about here? Now, I'm asking this in the sense where, of course, you are a contender for the premiership. Other party leaders are, of course, in the same position. How many do you think we'll be looking at seriously in terms of major players here?
Well, at least we have the former opposition parties. So apart from us, there is the Thai Party and Mahachon Party. You may say that because Thai is already said to be a medium-sized party, it has room to grow to become a major player. We have the former TRT grouping. They still have the biggest number of former MPs, even discounting those people who have been banned by the verdict on the 30th of May. So if they stick together, or a large part of them stick together, that's another major player. We have the factions that have broken away from the Thai. So at least one grouping is probably about to, or has maybe today announced the setting up of a new party. And there are also still other faction leaders who have made their intentions known, that they have left the TRT party and that they'll be setting up a new party, which is not the same as the Machima group. So we're looking at least four or five major players.
Now, how do you feel about this whole, I don't want to use the word nominee, but I really can't get around it. The fact that, some of the 111 who are banned from politics will essentially stay in politics unofficially. They'll be contesting members of their family, their people who are close to them, and so forth and so on. What do the Democrats think about that?
Well, it's really the people's choice. So these people have been politicians for a long time, and they probably feel attached to what they've been doing. They don't have the right to run this time around unless maybe some amnesty is granted to them. They will find people close to them to run for the seats. I think it's a natural reaction on their part, but it's still up to the electorate, up to the people in those constituencies who they vote for. So I think you have to accept the rules of the game.
As not as a politician, not as the leader of the Democrat Party, as a Thai national, what do you think about that?
No, it's the same thing. I mean, they have the right to run. If people felt that this was not appropriate, then they should not vote for these
Do you
people.
think, as a Thai national, that it is appropriate?
You cannot give a yes or no as a blanket answer. I mean, there are a number of people who have people close to them who are also well qualified. So it cannot just be an answer that because you happen to be close to one of the people who have been banned, that they should not be a qualified candidate or somebody who wants to serve as a representative of the people. But if you don't like the people who have been banned, if you don't like the party, then obviously you have the choice not to vote for whoever you think is associated with them or is actually running on their behalf.
Now, going to the Constitution, of course, a lot of things still very unclear, but it seems as though that what will go to the referendum is, they decided on Article 154, 155, 156. I want to ask you about the overall perception of the next government. Now, we're moving towards, prior to 1997, we moved towards a strong Prime Minister, a strong government, the first time in Thai history that the Prime Minister stayed full term. But then again, obviously we saw the flaws to that. Now we're moving away from the strong Prime Minister concept and opening it up towards check and balances, the fact that only, 1/4 of the MPs can censure the Prime Minister, 1/5 of the MPs can censure cabinet members, and also a clause that says if those two don't work, then half of the opposition MPs can offer a motion as well. Do you think that this will once again turn Thailand into what we saw prior to Thaksin, with half-year Prime Minister, dissolution of Parliament every so forth and so on?
What I would say is that the nature of the next government will be different from the one-party government and the government dominated by a Prime Minister. But that may be less to do with the Constitution itself. You have to remember that even in the past, governments are not really brought down by losing a vote in Parliament, but rather it's a problem concerning a coalition government that cannot hold together.
Yes.
It just so happens, because we discussed earlier, that there seems to be at least 4 or 5 major players or parties who will be contesting the elections, that the consensus appears to be that there will have to be a coalition government.
Obviously.
But for myself, I don't think that the electorate would like to see a return to messy and weak coalitions either. And I think the political culture of the country has changed. The country's moved on too. And people will have firm expectations about the pledges that political parties will make to them during the elections, and expect those pledges to be carried out.
Yes.
I don't think that anyone leading a party into the next elections, make all the campaign pledges or promises, can turn around and tell the people who vote for them that, sorry, I cannot do this, sorry, I cannot do that, because it's a coalition government. The people won't accept it. And certainly for us, the Democrats, I have made clear that before we enter into some kind of agreement on a coalition, we have to agree on the policies. And the policies must respect the will of the people as we go to them during the elections.
Yes.
So I think that while we return to coalition governments, the nature of coalition governments really cannot go back to the pre-1997 day. So this is what we have to strike the right balance. So we have a government that is perhaps less stable, and hopefully we will be more accountable.
Yes.
But it should not be a government that is unclear, that is weak, that somehow does not reflect the will of the people.
Now, as a voter, I would have to ask you, in the past it seemed as though that the weakness or the strength of the coalitions had very little to do with the people, but rather with political wrangling and political negotiation within the coalition itself. You as a politician, how do you plan to deal with that in the future?
Well, what I said earlier about political culture of the country has moved on.
You mean politicians have moved on as well?
Politicians have to move on as well, or else they won't be able to respond to people's needs, to people's expectations. So I don't think the coalition could return to the days where you are left with 1, 2, 3 power brokers who can call the shots. I think a lot of the decisions will be dictated by the expectations of the people, and that will be clear even before the coalition is formed. So that one of the things, certainly this kind of question, will be asked to all political parties as we go to the people. How would you deal with the coalition? How would you reassure us that the policies that you're telling us today are going to be implemented? So I think there'll be enormous pressure for certainly the core of the coalition government to deliver, and therefore the way they handle coalition politics would have to be different from the pre-1997 days.
Now, if we go into elections late this year, we will probably see a government very early next year, and there has been speculation to a certain extent that if you are voted prime minister, you could stay in politics for, let's say, 1.5 years, and there will be, or there could be, a demand for another drafting of a constitution that's drafted under the people, by the people, rather than under a military coup ruling. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible, but I don't see the scenario as demands for changes in the constitution, because I think that political parties, certainly the Democrat Party, will pick up the articles, the sections, the issues that are still of concern to the people as we put the constitution to referendum, and prepare for amendments or for a process by which the constitution can be improved. I think the situation now that we have is whether the drafting assembly's version becomes effective, or whether the CNS or government's version becomes the effective constitution, there will be pressure for amendments. And I think political parties move very quickly. We certainly intend to move very quickly to tell the people that things need to be changed.
So maybe...
So it won't even take 1.5 years. I think straight away, even during the election campaign, we'll be asked, are we happy with the constitution? What changes would like to be made? And I think there will be, during the time of the elections, where various political parties will come up with proposals about what they would like to see as changes in the constitution.
Have you been happy? I mean, I'm not going to ask you if you're happy with the constitution or not, because it's very early to say so, but have you been happy with the process in which the constitution is being drafted?
Well, you cannot really be happy with the process, especially if you're a party member, let alone a party leader or executive, because we've been excluded from the process quite a lot. We've had a number of occasions, well, 3 to be precise, 2 from the government, 1 from the drafting assembly, where we were asked for our views, but it's confined to what, 2 afternoons, 2 hours, very little time, and also confined to certain points within the constitution as well. But I think that the more important part is the substance of the constitution, and while we see improvements on certain areas, like rights, we do see some steps which we feel are steps backwards, certainly for democracy, and we think that those would have to be corrected. I can't see a half-elected, half-selected Senate last very long.
Okay, so those are one of the issues. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the premiership. A lot of debate as to whether or not a PM should be elected, whether or not he should come from a member of parliament. Of course, they've already decided in the second draft that he will be a member of parliament, whoever this next prime minister will be. We'll talk about the whole issue of political impact in our next break, and also Kun Apisit's view about the former prime minister Kun Thaksin, his globe-trotting issues, and whether or not, if he becomes the next prime minister, how he will deal with that issue. After these short messages, stay tuned. Welcome back to Headliners. I'm seated here with the leader of the Democrat Party, Kun Apisit Wechatiwa, and we spoke about the Constitution and the fact that in its process, any issues that will need to be dealt with in the next government. Let me ask you about one issue that has been in the minds of some people, and the fact that the image, whether or not it's true, of course, is not a question at this point, but the image that the Democrats are fairly close to members of the Council of National Security. It seems as though that since you were on the opposition of the Direct Thai, that hence, the equation just falls that the CNS is on your side. Your comments on that issue?
We've been charting our actions independently, and I don't think that anyone can seriously believe that members of the CNS are actually looking for, deals with the Democrat Party. In fact, we've been known as a party that is most difficult to deal with. We have strong internal institutions, very strong sense of ideology. So we're not a deal-making type. Some people actually say that's a weakness for us. And if you look closely at the rumors, the reports, whenever members of the CNS are thinking about political future, it's not us. It's not us. It's always members from the former TRT.
So no substantiated.
No, and I have actually been saying that I would like to see free and fair elections foremost. If the CNS would like to join politics, I say they're welcome to. But let them run openly and let the elections be free and fair. And we're happy to face competition from both the former TRT, whom I say have every right to register a new party, and the CNS.
Register a new party in terms of the TRT under the same name, under the same logo? Doesn't matter to you?
I think so, because I think it's their right to do that. I think the executive committee members have been held responsible for the actions that they have undertaken under the name TRT. The party has been disbanded. These 111 people are now facing a political ban. But the supporters, the members of the TRT should have a right to regroup, rejoin under the banner they believe in and present it to the people.
You've addressed the issue of a prime minister who has to be elected, who has to come from a member of parliament, and I'm sure you've answered this question before. Answer for me again tonight. What happens if history replays itself and we see another political crisis at hand without the opening or exit in terms of a royally appointed prime minister, a prime minister who is not a member of parliament?
I mean, I don't think we can get away from the principles of democracy, and we just have to put in the safeguards by allowing a non-elected member, a non-elected prime minister. We're not actually solving anything. Just think back to the days of last year when we were at the height of the crisis. My suggestion was that Thaksin and the cabinet resign, and I accept the fact that if they do not resign, there is no room. And I don't see how having this kind of provision in would have changed the situation last year, because you cannot dismiss the prime minister who has been elected, or a caretaker prime minister, under the rules. So my point is that special circumstances can only arise if there is a sense of responsibility. Had Kun Thaksin and the cabinet resigned last year when there was no parliament, then an appointed prime minister comes automatically anyway. So that, the first point is, I'm not sure having a kind of a provision like a non-elected PM or even the emergency panel that people were talking before would actually solve the situation in practice. And secondly, I think it's time that we as a country think about the safeguards, think about the prevention of crises before they take place. I think by the time that we were in a kind of the situation we were in last year, by that time it's too late. It really is too late because the conflicts had heightened. Everything was taken to the streets. There was a threat of violence. But we really have to learn to prevent the country from returning to that situation. We have to stop a prime minister who abuses power, whether he abuses human rights, whether he's engaged in corruption, whether he's interfering with the judiciary process or independent organizations or the media. He has to be stopped right from the start and not allowed to actually take these abuses one step further, another step further, two further steps until we end up in a crisis. I think that's what the country has to learn to do.
How do we do that, though? How do we, with an elected prime minister who comes into office with, let's say, not even an overwhelming majority, but just enough to come into office, and how do we know that this individual, I mean, prior to Kun Thaksin,
I'm disappointed that the current government and the CNS have not done enough to help protect civil servants, members of the media, so that they can really get on with their jobs in a straightforward manner. I think there are laws that should be put in place to protect these people, so that whenever we have a prime minister who is bent on accumulating power, who abuses power, who intimidates the media or the civil servants, members of the media, members of the civil service can stand up and have the right to do so and have the protection to have the courage to do so. That's what we have to put in place. And society has to learn. I mean, last time I think so many people said, well, let's turn a blind eye. We think he's doing a good job, so it doesn't matter he's corrupt, doesn't matter he's actually killing people or ordering the killing of people. That's not the kind of thinking that we want to see in a democratic society.
Now, do you think the articles 154, 155, 156 opening up the floor to more censures, more check and balance?
I think that's fine.
Will that help?
It helps. It helps because whenever you have Parliament as an effective forum, at least to talk about the issues, to present the other side, it helps create understanding within society. But don't over-rely on the checks and balance in Parliament. After all, in a parliamentary system, whichever sitting government has to have a majority in the House. So you're not likely to lose votes as a government in the House. But it has to be backed up by good journalism, by strong independent organizations, by a very watchful civil society. If this happens, then we have a much better immunity against a leader that abuses power.
How long do you think it will take for Thailand to build such mechanisms? A strong civil servant system, strong enough, independent enough media?
Well, I think it takes, first of all, it takes leadership. And if the current government and if the current the military regime is not prepared to move ahead with this, I will move ahead. I will certainly present one of the key policies, which is to deal with the issue of corruption, of abuses of power. And I want to put in place a system that people can be confident of in terms of checking the use of power. Even though if I were the government, of course, I would be the one holding the power. Because I think it's really time that we stop the abuses that have contributed to crisis after crisis in our history.
Is this the last coup we're going to see?
We hope so.
Everybody says that.
We hope so. And I remember last time there was a coup, not this one. Everybody thought that could have been the last one too. And certainly when we had a 97 constitution, people were very optimistic about the future of democracy. But well, the Thaksin years took its toll, and we have to learn from that. Again, I go back to the point I made earlier, that don't wait until a crisis happens. At every point in time, at every step, we should all do our best to prevent problems from getting out of hand.
Speaking of Kun Thaksin, a lot of people seem to believe, as a Thai national, I'm one of them, who feel that even though we get through elections, even though we get through the referendum, whether or not the Constitution passes, nobody can say at this point. But if it doesn't, we use another constitution. If it does, we use this constitution. We get to elections, we get a new government. Kun Thaksin is still going to be there. He has certainly enough money to be running around, using influence when he can. If you are the new leader of the government, how do you plan to deal with him and that situation?
I would treat him the way I think all Thais should be treated. And that is, whatever is right belong to him, must be respected. But he has to be under the law, just as everybody else. By the time that we get to the next government, there will be, I think, cases waiting in court. He should come back and fight those cases in court with no special treatment, one way or the other. So if he's done something wrong, let him have a fair trial. Then he has to be held responsible. If he hasn't done anything wrong, then you have to leave him alone. And he has the right to enjoy whatever rights other Thai citizens enjoy.
Are you concerned at all about the so-called undercurrents that have been occurring, even though, of course, no concrete evidence that it has been funded by him or people close to him?
I think Kun Thaksin is an ambitious person. He's not old. He's wealthy. So you don't expect him to just retire quietly. And of course, he could be using all his resources to plot his comeback. But the issue is, if we had a government that is elected, that responds to people's needs, then I don't think he would have the legitimacy or the claim or the excuse of coming back. So the challenge for the next elected government is to prove that for those supporters of Thaksin, actually the things that they benefit from Thaksin in a rightful manner, that is to say they benefit from some policies that address their needs, their concerns, well, another elected government can deliver, can respond to. So there's no need to tie all that to a single person. That is the challenge.
So can I safely assume from that particular answer that the Democrats will be targeting not only your hardcore supporters in southern Thailand, but also the pro-Thaksin supporters as well?
I wouldn't even say it's about hardcore supporters or Thaksin supporters. I think the next leader of this country has to be able to unite the whole country. I think that for too long now we've been in a crisis and it's hurting people, hurting them economically. The economy is not doing well. People are suffering, low incomes, high prices. We have unrest in the south. People are very concerned, very afraid. These issues have to be dealt with. They're big problems. It needs cooperation of the whole country. So the next leader has to reach out and unite the people, get the people to come around to support the moving of the country forward. We've lost 2 years. You know, the world doesn't stay still, doesn't stop with us, and so many of our competitors are moving ahead. We need to catch up. So we need to really reach out and get everybody on board, you know, to move this country forward. That's the intention that I have. That's the intention of the Democrat Party. So it's not even just a question of, is it the South or the North and the Northeast? Is it Thai Rak Thai? Is it Democrat? And I say, if I were elected Prime Minister, I would have to work for all people, whether they vote for me or not. This is the change that has to be brought to this country.
Yes, I remember his comment on that particular issue. Yes, I do. Of course, I think our viewers remember it as well. So you will be representing.
It's time to heal all the divisions within the country, but heal it in a way that does not run counter to the correct principles of the rule of law. Okay, so this issue of reconciliation, it has to be pursued, but reconciliation doesn't mean, you know, making deals to circumvent the law. It's about addressing the concerns and needs of all groups of people. And I believe that almost all Thais would like to see a peaceful country, would like to see the country prosper. They want to move ahead. They want to move on.
Does that also mean that you, as the leader of the Democrat Party, would be willing to tap on resources, of course human resources, that were post-Thai Rak Thai, if you felt that they were appropriate for whichever position or whichever
I think the substance of the policies matter more than the people. For instance, if there are still supporters of Thaksin who believe that they should support him because they are poor and that their needs should be addressed, we'll talk to them. Are they worried the free healthcare is going to be taken away from them? We say we have no intention of taking a free healthcare away from them, but we need to improve the system. Would the village fund be abolished? We don't have intentions of abolishing the village fund, but we just have to make sure that the money that is circulating in the village should be for productive use, and we have to deal with the bad debts. These are examples of how we can reassure them that some of the things that they like about the Thaksin years will stay and be improved. At the same time, I would like to present new policies in terms of creating welfare for people where there are entitlements in terms of education, health, as well as well, I wouldn't go as to say pensions, but at least some income support for the old. We would be encouraging, community savings and so on, so that we are saying very, very loudly that all groups will have their needs, their concerns addressed. And the way out of poverty, we will tell them, is not to wait for loans from the government. It's for the government to ensure that jobs are created, opportunities are there, so that they have incomes. That's the way to lift people out of poverty.
Okay, let's take another short break. We'll come back and we'll talk more about the Democrats themselves, Kun Apisit himself. We've talked about the whole political picture here in Thailand, how the Democrats are one player in the whole system. But let's come back and let's talk about the Democrats as a whole, how ready Kun Apisit is to be the next Prime Minister of Thailand, how ready the Democrats are to lead the next government, and of course this whole comment about how Kun Apisit is still very young, it's still somehow, some people say, excuse me for saying weak. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Headliners. Kun Apisit, please, with all due respect, if you don't mind my asking, there have been comments, and of course I don't want to name names, but that you are very young.
I am.
You are, although well educated, both in terms of your educational background, but still very young in politics as well. And I think the word weak was in there somewhere.
Well, put it this way, I am who I am. I don't intend to lie about my age. I don't intend to have my face done to look older. I'm 43. Am I inexperienced as a politician? I've had 15 years. That's longer than probably the average of politicians in the last parliament. I've been in the opposition, I've been in government, and I think I have a track record on whether I have a good grasp of issues and so on. So maybe my appearance makes me look like a newcomer, but people who follow closely will know that I've been around actually 15 years. Am I weak? Well, all I can say is if I were weak, I don't think I'll be sitting here today. I had to assume the leadership of an opposition party when everybody was saying that we were facing a government that was far too strong, and that was going to last 20 years, and that would be crushed into I don't know, humiliation and even disappearance of the party. Well, I'm still here today, and I don't think that anybody weak would have been able to steer the party through those difficult times.
Fair enough. Internally, we see a mixture of some old blood within the Democrats. People have been around for several decades, experienced individuals, of course. But we also see a mixture of new blood, businessmen turned politicians, academics turned politicians. And there were some concerns, even during the April 2nd elections, even the ones that were boycotted by the opposition at that time. There were concerns that this mixture didn't quite mesh together very well. Where are you now?
Well, I think diversity is a strength. I'll give you an example of former leader Kun Chun. he's played a role of advisor, and I think he's played a very important role. While giving us advices, always reminding us of important issues, he's also allowed the new generation to run the party as executive committee members. I think that's a very good illustration how we can tap into the experience of the older generations while allowing the younger generations to get to work. And his role, for instance, will continue to be valuable. For instance, if we were in government, say next year, Kunchuana said he would still be backing the party, but he wouldn't actually be demanding any kind of positions. But I'm sure he can contribute to some of the policies and issues very much, especially, for instance, the issue of the Deep South.
Yes. So we're talking about a diverse team.
Yes. So we have the experience and the wisdom of the older generations, but we also have the fire and the motivations of the younger generations within the party.
What kind of image will you be putting out to voters? Of course, you have your stronghold. That's undebatable. But
I'm not thinking of image. I'm thinking of the substance. The substance is we're going to put down key agenda for the country. We say it's of utmost importance that we stop the unrest in the south, not just for the southern people, but for the rest of the country as well.
Yes.
We want to revive the economy as soon as possible, because the longer the economic slump goes on, the more people get hurt. And we want to rebuild the political, the economic systems that have been damaged by the crisis over the last couple of years. We have been known for a party that invests a lot in education. We think that's absolutely vital for the country's future. And these are the things that we'll talk about. We'll address the issues of poverty, we'll address the issue of competitiveness, we'll address the issue about the role of foreign investment, and so on. These will be the things that we're down on the table for people to see. That's what we want to get people involved in.
You can't deny that there is a generation out there, younger, working class, where they haven't leaned towards one particular party in the past.
No, but they have the aspirations to live in a prosperous and a peaceful society, and we will present to them the plans for that and why they can be confident of their future.
Does that mean, can I safely assume here that you're not going to put out a new look, as in we were waiting for you when you became party leader to put out a new
the country and
so-called new age Democrat.
Just as the country's moved on, the party has moved on too. And when I became party leader 2 years ago, I initiated a number of things. You remember the People's Assembly?
Yes.
Now the use of assemblies, even now the current government is using. Yes, because I'm talking about direct participatory politics, politics for everybody, and we are now communicating with people about their needs. Remember the People's Agenda of last year. So the Democrat Party today is quite different from what it was 2 years ago, and we'll make further steps to tell the people what we intend to do, and we move with the times.
So you're keeping with the good points that we're still the foundation of the Democrat Party, yet gradually changing into something that can be more tangible?
Gradual would give the impression of slow. We cannot afford to be slow, and we'll make the necessary changes. And I think you will see it in the platform. You will see it in the candidates that we put up. That will speak volumes about how far we've come.
I'm not going to ask you when we will see it, because of course I'm sure you don't know, or a lot of people still don't know. But
well, we're not sitting still. You will notice that even over the last 3-4 months, when there was a ban on party political activity, I myself have engaged a series of people in various circles to talk about the issues facing the country. So we're almost putting the final touches now to the platform. And we're going out to meet people, not to campaign, but to create this common understanding, common sense of purpose, so that the country and the Democrat Party can move together to push forward this agenda.
So you do have a working plan.
Yes.
And
yes.
you are ready. Whenever, let's say, the CNS,
Sure.
the government says, boom, we're going to have elections.
Sure, that's fine by us.
Democrats are ready.
That's fine by us.
Do you have a list of candidates yet in mind?
Not all of them. We only know of the electoral system, and that's tentative because we don't know whether it's going to be the final say. But we work according to the information we have. So as soon as we know that there will be multi-member constituencies and 8 party lists in 10.
Yes.
Sorry,
the whole regional representation.
Yes. We're gonna work towards a list of candidates according to that system.
So you do have an overall, let's say, a pool that you can pick from, and whatever comes the rules, you have that in store.
Yes, we have the basics in store, but obviously we still welcome new people, fresh faces, and we will consider what's best for the country.
Are you ready to be Prime Minister?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
How ready?
I have the plans, I have the ideas, I have the commitment, I have the dedication. I'm prepared to work hard, but it's up to the people to decide.
Well, it is up to the people to decide, and that's why we brought him on the show today, for you guys to get a glimpse of one of the top contenders for the premiership 2007, 2008. Although we will be seeing a lot more contenders opening up as we go towards elections. The Democrats are still one of the front runners, one of the first times in several years that they are front runners. So let's keep them in mind. Let's keep a lot of different people in mind. We'll be keeping you in mind, of course, here on Headliners as we bring to you the next contenders for the 2007-2008 elections. Thank you so much for joining us. ขอบคุณค่ะ. Thank you for joining us. I will see you on the next edition of Headliners. Thanks for watching. สวัสดีค่ะ